do is I wanted to be able to give you an understanding of what I call a theological understanding about Jesus, Christmas, what we need, why we needed Jesus in the first place, how it doctrinally works, how it theologically works, all of those wonderful things. Problem with that is, y'all look like y'all was bored just listening to me tell you about theological things and doctrinal things. It's boring, right? So that's my biggest issue is that, hey, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I've learned so much over these years about how much people do and don't know about Jesus, incarnation, and all of these wonderful things. And because we just do it and we say it and we don't really understand it. And so I grew up with what we call the illustrated sermons. I don't know if y'all ever had one of them. And so for the next, and I don't know that they're going to be formatted the same way I'm formatted today, but you never know what I'm going to do. So for the next few weeks, we're going to do what we call an illustrated sermon, which means that instead of me talking you to death, which actually, let me not make y'all that happy, because I probably will talk you to death. But instead of me in the format in which I normally talk you to death, I want to give you some real life examples and I want to walk you through some things. So for the next 5 weeks, we're going to talk about Jesus. We're going to talk about his significance through the Bible. We're going to talk about so many wonderful, wonderful things. And we're going to talk about them in a way I call an illustrated sermon. And so, y'all ready for this? It is a risk on my part. It's either going to go well or it's going to fall on its face. I just want you to know that if it falls on its face, I will pretend like it went real well. You ready? All right, so this is what we're going to do. It's going to be called an illustrated sermon, and it's going to be titled Messiah. Let's go.
In the beginning, there was harmony, a perfect melody sung by creation itself. Every note aligned, every breath filled with purpose. Humanity stood at a pinnacle, crowned with glory, reflecting the image of their creator. And at the heart of it all, there was him, the one who walked with us, the one who called us very good. But the melody broke. One choice, one act of rebellion tore the fabric of what was meant to be. And it came with silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of separation. Do you feel it? That ache, that void, the emptiness left behind by a shattered world. From that moment, humanity was lost. We tried to rebuild the melody with our own hands, but every attempt fell flat. Our sacrifices could not erase the stain. Our kingdoms could not bridge the divide. Our wisdom could not undo the curse. The weight of sin pressed down through every generation, father to son, mother to daughter, until the earth itself groaned beneath it. And yet, amidst the darkness, there was a whisper. A thread of hope woven into the story, a promise. He said to the serpent, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. That meant a redeemer would come, a Messiah, not to repair what was broken, but to make all things new. This is the story of the Messiah, a story written in the fabric of time, whispered through the prophets, and fulfilled in ways no one expected. Each week we will journey together, from the tragedy of the fall to the promise of redemption, from the longings of a broken people to the fulfillment of a miraculous birth, from the shadows of death to the hope of eternal life. This morning, we will begin where all stories begin, with the need for a Savior, the need for reconciliation, the need for help, the Messiah.
So what? Christ lives, Christ died, Christ lives. Our life of sin cleanse, homeboy, priceless. You can run it down, everything that's on your price list. Get the dozen, does the rapper is you living righteous. Write this, write down, fool. Stand it on your arm. When he dropped the mega bomb, Slim, I'm gone. Messiah, and you know I'm breathing again. Leaving the sin just to get up who believing again. Messiah, and you don't really wanna go there, so keep your squares, cause my high ain't fair. Oh yeah. Messiah, and you know I'm breathing again. Even if 10 bammers pin me to the wall, I'ma win. Messiah, and you don't really wanna know that, so keep your jacks, cause my high is fat. Like that.
Now, let's step back into the garden. Let's hear the serpent's whisper, feel the weight of sin, and listen for the echo of a promise. Let's remember why we needed a Messiah and why the story could not end simply with our fall. For even in our darkest hour, his plan was already unfolding. His love, it never let us go. There was a time when every moment was saturated with life. The trees did not just grow, they rejoiced. The rivers did not merely flow, they danced their way into the sea. Creation was not passive, it was alive. And we were more than caretakers. We were kings and queens in a world crafted for delight. We bore his image, the Imago Dei. Do you know what that means? To reflect the Creator? To live in harmony with him and everything he made. There was no striving then, no scarcity. Every breath was worship, every step communion. I could hear his voice, not as thunder, but as music. He was near, closer than the air I breathe. And the garden. Oh, the garden. It wasn't just beautiful, it was sacred. Every tree sang of his glory. Every blade of grass proclaimed his goodness. And at the center stood two trees, symbols of his provision and his sovereignty. The tree of life, a gift beyond comprehension. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, a reminder of trust. It was not just a test. It was a covenant, a promise, a contract. He gave us everything, but he also gave us a choice. Because love without choice is no love at all. But love without choice is manipulation. Love without choice is desperation. And love without choice is obligation, void of freedom, void of meaning, and void of truth. Because love without choice is no love at all. There was another voice in the garden. Not his voice. It was quieter, more subtle, yet somehow insistent. It didn't demand, it suggested. It didn't shout, it whispered. Did God really say? At first, it seemed like a harmless question. But questions are powerful things. They plant seeds. They take root in the mind and twist the heart. And suddenly, I wasn't looking at the tree with trust. I was looking at it with doubt. The fruit was no longer forbidden. It was desirable. The serpent told me that it would make me wise like God. That got me thinking that maybe there was more out here than what we were told. Would it really make me like God? But what it really made me was empty. I reached, I took, I ate. And in that moment, everything broke. Have you ever felt the weight of guilt? The crushing realization that you've shattered something precious? The heavy, burdensome awareness when you know you crossed a line that you can never return from? That was the garden. The vibrant colors faded, the harmony dissolved in the chaos. And then I heard his voice. The voice that once brought me joy now struck terror. Where are you? He asked. Where was I? Hiding. Ashamed. For the first time, I knew fear. I knew shame. I knew what it meant to be separated from him. He found us, of course. You can't hide from the one who made you. But what came next was worse than I could have imagined. Judgment. Not cruel or vindictive, but just. The ground itself was cursed because of us. The world that once rejoiced now groaned under the weight of sin. And death? Oh, death. It wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. To be separated from the source of life is to die 1,000 deaths. But even as he spoke the curse, he gave us a promise. To the serpent, he said, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. A promise. A strange, cryptic word of hope that one day someone would come, someone who would set things right. Our sin was not contained to the garden. It spilled out like a river bursting its banks, flooding everything in its path. Cain killed Abel. Nations rose in pride and fell in ruin. The earth itself groaned under the weight of it all. Sin is not just an act, it's a condition, a sickness that infects every part of who we are. We tried to fix it. We built towers to reach heaven. We offered sacrifices to cover our guilt. We wrote laws to restrain our evil, but none of it worked. We couldn't heal ourselves. But God, oh, those 2 words change everything. He didn't leave us in our brokenness. The promise he made in the garden began to unfold. Through Abraham, he formed a nation. Through Moses, he gave the law. Through David, he promised an everlasting kingdom. And through the prophets, he spoke of a coming Messiah, one who would bear our griefs and carry our sorrows, one who would be pierced for our transgressions, one who would once and for all crush the serpent's head. The Messiah would not just repair the breach. He would become the bridge. He would not just conquer death. He would taste it for us. And yet he would come humbly, not as a king in a palace, but as a child in a manger, not with armies, but with love. This is why we needed a Messiah. Not to fix our circumstances, but to transform our hearts. Not to simply make us better people, but to make us new creations. Do you see it now? The threads of the story? The Messiah wasn't an afterthought. He was the lamb slain from the foundation of the world, like in Revelation 13:8. Before the garden, before the fall, the cross was already his plan. This is the depth of his love. A love so vast, so unrelenting, that it reaches into the darkest corners of our lives, the places we hide, the wounds we deny, the shame we carry. It's a love that refuses to let us go, no matter how far we've wandered or how many times we've turned our backs. It's a love that steps into our brokenness, not hesitantly, but not from a distance, but fully, willingly, boldly. He doesn't avoid our mess. He walks right into it. He kneels beside us in our pain. He sees every every shattered piece of who we are. Instead of recoiling, he gathers them in his hands. This is a love that carries the weight of our failures on his shoulders, not just some of them, all of them. The weight of every mistake, every regret, every burden we could never bear on our own. And he doesn't just carry them, he bears it willingly, even as it presses him to the ground. It's the kind of love that looks at you, not the version of you you want the world to see, but the real you, the weary you, the broken you. And it says, you are worth it. You are mine, and I will not let you go. This is the love that steps into our storms, not to shield us from every wave, but to stand with us in the midst of them. It's the love that weeps when we grieve, that holds us when we feel like we're falling apart, that speaks truth when lies surround us. It's the depth of his love, a love that cannot be measured, a love that cannot be earned, and a love that cannot be lost, a love that transforms, a love that restores, a love that says, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, I am here, and I will never leave. So we wait, just as they waited, for the promise to be fulfilled, for the Messiah who was and is to come.
I wanted to make sure that we all on the same page about what we're doing here, about who we're worshiping here, about why we worship who we worship, and why we do what we do. I want to make sure we're all on the same page that this is just not just something that we come to do every Sunday. This is not just a thing that we do every week. This is not just something we do because it's the tradition of our culture. We do it because we understand what the Lord did for us. We do it because we understand how much the Lord loves us and how much he cares for us. We do it because we understand that he wants relationship with us. He wants relationship with us. And so that's why we do this every Sunday, and that's why we honor him so much in this season. That's why we should honor him so much in this season. So, as we close today, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt it? Have you ever felt it? Have you ever felt that ache? That void inside that no success, no relationship, no achievement, no amount of money has ever been able to fill? Have you ever laid awake at night just replaying regrets or carrying burdens too heavy to bear? That's the whispers of the garden, echoing in your soul. The serpent still whispers, you're not enough. You've gone too far and you're too broken to be loved. But then there's another voice. It's the voice of the one who walked in the garden, the one who knew what you would do before you ever did it. And he still called you mine. It's the voice of the Messiah saying, come to me, all who are worried and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me, you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And you'll find rest for your soul. And this is what makes him different than any other solution that we may have looked for. Anything else that we may have tried. The world says, fix yourself. Jesus says, I'll fix you. The world says, earn it. Jesus says, it's finished. The world says you're on your own, every man for himself. Jesus says, I am with you. I am with you always. This is not just about Adam and Eve. This is your story. This is my story. See, we all have our garden moments. We've all reached out for something we thought would satisfy, only to find ourselves only more empty, more lost. But the beauty of the gospel is that the story doesn't end there. It didn't end in the garden. It didn't end in the garden. And it doesn't end in your brokenness. The Messiah came not for perfect people, but for real people. People like you, people like me. He stepped into our mess, our shame, our sin, our failure, and said, I will make all things new. He didn't just come to repair your circumstance. He didn't just come to fix your situation. He didn't just come to solve your problem. He came to restore your soul. He didn't just come to forgive you. He came to set you free. He came to set you free. So maybe you've been hiding like Adam and Eve in the garden. Maybe you've been carrying guilt or shame or fear, thinking that if anyone really knew you, they wouldn't love you. Thinking if anybody really knew, they wouldn't love me. But here's the truth. Here's the truth. He already knows. He knows every failure, every hidden tear. He knows the sin you don't know you've even done yet. And he loves you still. He knows all that and he loves you still. So, right now he's calling you. He's calling you. Not because you got it all together. Because you can't do it on your own. Not because you got it all together, because without him you can't get it all together. He's calling you out of hiding, out of fear, out of shame, into his arms. And all it takes is one step. Just one step towards him. Just one step. Just one step. So if you're here today and you feel that ache, that longing for something more, for someone more, I just want to invite you to take that step. Maybe you've never said you've never quite said yes to Jesus before. Or maybe you have, but you've wandered. And you're just ready. You're just longing to come home. Either way, his arms are open wide. Either way, his arms are open wide. Maybe it's a situation or a circumstance that really just has you down and has you wonder, what is this whole God thing even for? He wants you to take that step because he wants you. And I don't want anyone in here to let the whispers of doubt hold you back in this season. Don't let the enemy's lies keep you from the one who gave everything to bring you back to him. Don't let the enemy's lies keep you from the one who gave everything to bring you back to him. If any of that is you, if any of that is you, I want you to boldly come forward to the altar. If any of that is you, I want you to boldly know that the altar is open. And I want you to come from your seat and boldly come to the altar. If any of that is you, if any of that has touched you, if